Hello and welcome to India's World. I am Vishal Dahiya, and this week we will talk about Pak's deep state of affairs. Pakistan's Supreme Court has directed all state agencies, including the army and its intelligence unit ISI, to operate within their limits and not engage in political activities. This rare rebuke to the all-powerful Pakistan military came from nation's top court last week when it was delivering its verdict on a sit-in staged by the hardline Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan, that is TLP, and some other groups in 2017. Pakistan's government had to involve the army to bring an end to that protest. The incident is important because the army and ISI are rarely criticized in this manner by either the Pakistani government or the judiciary. The army in Pakistan has a history of staging coups, and the military establishment, along with bureaucracy and intelligence community, have often undermined the writ of an elected government. So to what extent will this verdict from Pakistan Supreme Court help in reining in the army and the ISI, and how should India view these developments in its neighborhood? For a detailed discussion on this, today we are joined by a distinguished panel of guests in the studio. Let me start by introducing them to you, beginning with the Retd Major General Ashwani Siwach. We also have with us Mr. Alok Bansal, Director, India Foundation, and Mr. Prabhu Dayal, former ambassador. Let me begin with you, Ambassador Dayal, to try and understand this particular judgment which is coming from the Supreme Court, sort of, castigating the army and the ISI. In what extent should we be viewing it? This is rare, but how significant it might be?
Well, first of all, Vishal, I would like to apologize to you and to our viewers because I am slightly unwell today, which is a coincidence because we would be discussing Pakistan, which has been chronically and seriously ill almost from its very creation in 1947. And while my illnesses, a sore throat and a slight cold, would be very easy to treat, the illnesses of Pakistan run so deep that they are almost incurable. But significantly, the Supreme Court of Pakistan has made a serious attempt by delivering a suo motu judgment in the Faizabad sit-in or the Faizabad dharna. If you recall, during this dharna, extreme right-wing organizations had paralyzed the life of that part of Pakistan, that is Islamabad and Rawalpindi, and the access to these two important cities almost completely. And the sit-in was ended with the intervention of the army, and 6 people were killed and more than 200 were injured. So what is significant is that some of the video footage circulated of what happened showed a senior Pakistan Armed Forces officer giving money to some of the leaders of this dharna, which showed that the Pakistan army was abetting this kind of activity. The point is that the Pakistan army has been interfering in the activities and the functioning of the civilian government from the beginning. In fact, almost for half its existence since 1947, Pakistan has been under military rule. Secondly, the religious extremist organizations have been spreading hatred and terrorism and have been virtually unchecked. So the Supreme Court's judgment, which is suo motu, because it took account of these developments on its own and has passed a judgment which has several important orders. But significantly, as you pointed out, it has ordered the armed forces and all other wings of government, including, of course, the ISI, to keep away from political activity. And it has directed them not to back any political party or any individual. At the same time, it has directed the authorities of Pakistan to monitor the activities of extremist organizations which spread hatred and violence, and has said that any efforts to pass fatwas which try to harm individuals should be very seriously taken note of, and should be criminally prosecuted. So this is a very significant judgment, because Pakistani extremist organizations have been merely passing fatwas against people.
Yes.
And both these aspects, along with several others in the judgment, are significant because they are a serious attempt to address the illnesses with which Pakistan is affected.
Okay, let me bring in Jan Siwach. Jan Siwach, as all of us know, Pakistan's military's history, and has been aptly summed by Ambassador Dayal here as well. You know, this particular judgment, the way it has been delivered and the kind of, restrictions it is putting on the army and the ISI as well, how feasible do you think it will be, or rather how possible it will be for army and ISI to go ahead and adhere to, this kind of verdict? Because all of us know the way Pakistani army and the ISI functions in that country.
Vishal, absolutely correct. So the point is, they don't deny the fact, as far as the Pakistan army is concerned, it consider it to be a holy cow. It is above the law. They say that most of the countries have military, but in Pakistan, military has got a country. It governs the way it wants. So therefore, the deep state is too powerful. Though this judgment, which has been given suo motu by the Supreme Court, and hats off to the Chief Justice of Pakistan, that he was bold enough to mention this, that the people in uniform should remain in the parameter of the law, and the ISI and other agencies should not curb the media freedom. But I don't think that it will go beyond that. Point is that army and the military has very strong there. You know, the deep state run the country. It is the foreign policy and defense policies are always done by the military and army. And therefore, anything which is significant, the army plays a major role. You are aware that the Pakistan army is the only country, part of the world, where they are running almost 50 commercial ventures. And there is an investment of $20 billion. And therefore, the Pakistan army is all over the Pakistan. So therefore, curbing their freedom by Supreme Court, I think it is one of those incidents. I don't think it is going to be implemented on ground, because it past also it is seen certain Supreme Court Chief Justices have tried to do that, but the ultimate result was the army, nothing happened to them, but they were no more there after some time. Okay. So therefore, the judiciary, the way they have taken a step, hats off to them, but I don't feel that this will carry on too long, because Pakistan army is too strong there. It is a part of a deep state and it runs the country the way it wants. You know what happened to Nawaz Sharif. The moment Nawaz Sharif fell apart from army, because army brought him, but when they realized that he is trying to become too big for his shoes, he is trying to mend a relation with India, which was not to the liking of the deep state. They did it what they did it. And same way, they are now brought as far as Imran Khan is concerned. So therefore, as far as Pakistan army is concerned, directly or indirectly, it is the one which governs the country. And the civil government is a puppet in the hand of the military. Okay. And the deep state runs as far as the military, as far as the defense and the foreign affairs are concerned. So therefore, to me, it looks like that, though hats off to Supreme Court of Pakistan that they have passed this remark, but these remarks are not going to make any impact on day-to-day functioning of Pakistan army and ISI, which is bold enough to take action the way they want.
Okay, Mr. Bansal, do you agree with your co-panelists that, ultimately the deep state in Pakistan, that is specifically the army and the intelligence agency ISI, will have the last word despite this kind of, verdict coming in from the top court of the land?
See, there is no doubt that as far as judiciary in Pakistan is concerned, more often than not, it has been the handmaiden of the army. In fact, we have a new Chief Justice. He's given a decision which is interesting. But you look at Pakistan, what has happened. Whenever judiciary has tried to go against the army, that's been actually put on, they've been shown the place. If you remember, when Musharraf had come to power, Justice Siddiqui was the senior most judge who refused to take oath under PCO. The 6 judges were removed. And he managed to get the 7 others actually, and they were appointed. When Justice Iftikhar Chaudhary grew too big for his boots, he was removed twice, not once, twice. So he was removed from the post. And you must also understand that Pakistan's army salience actually stems from this collusion by the judiciary. Pakistan's judiciary is ill-famous for having given the doctrine of necessity. As you remember, Chief Justice Munir actually justified military coup by giving a judgment, which actually was repeated again and again. So Pakistan's judiciary tries to take the easier option out, because even now the Asghar Khan case has not been taken. Asghar Khan has died. This was a case which has been languishing in courts for decades, where there is a clear-cut evidence that ISI paid money, the intelligence agencies paid money in an election to the opposition to bring it to power. But now the state is saying that it must be closed because the person who petitioned it is actually no more there. But Asghar Khan's family is saying no, this case must continue. Now coming to this particular case, now this is very interesting because Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan, at that point of time when this actually intersection was jammed at Faizabad, it was called Tehreek-e-Labbaik Ya Rasulullah.
In 2017.
Yes, it came out as which literally means I am here, O Prophet, or something like that.
A very hardline organization.
Yeah, very. I am here. That means I am here in your, at your beck and call. And this organization came into being because Mumtaz Qadri, who had assassinated Salman Taseer, was hanged. It was actually in support of him. Now, why did Mumtaz Qadri kill Salman Taseer? Because Salman Taseer had gone and met Asiya Bibi in the jail, and he said that the blasphemy laws need to be changed. Eventually, what happened, you know, the Supreme Court gave a verdict against acquitting Asiya Bibi. When Asiya Bibi was acquitted, Tehreek-e-Labbaik again said that the three judges are wajibul qatl. That means it is pious to kill them actually. It is actually a duty of everybody to kill them. Now again the judgment has come. Now this judgment has come at a time when the review petition has been cancelled. TLP's major leaders are all in jail. TLP is still protesting. The Pakistan government is saying that Asiya could go. Probably it's preparing the ground. Now this particular incident in 2017 when it happened, the army wanted to clip the wings of Nawaz Sharif, and that's what Ambassador Dayal said, that they were distributing money. This they brought. And what was the cause why this whole protest was there? Because in the electoral laws there was a minor tinkering done, where there is a requirement to prevent Ahmadiyas from getting elected as Muslims. There was a require that you need to give an affidavit, that if you are a Muslim, you have to say that I believe in the finality of the Prophet Muhammad. It was changed from an affidavit to an affirmation, that somebody had to say, yes, I affirm in the finality. Now this was seen as an attempt to bring back Ahmadiyas through the back door. And when this intersection was blocked for 15 days, more than 15 days, you remember Islamabad High Court at that stage gave a judgment saying that army should get this cleared, but army refused to do so. Army refused to do so. Now please remember, so irrespective of what judgment is given, it is eventually the final call of the army. Please understand here, there is another problem, because the current army chief, his religious orientation, his religious beliefs, there is a question mark over it. Because when last time Tehreek-e-Labbaik actually came out on the streets after Asiya Bibi's acquittal, one of the speech which was given was that they asked army officers and personnel not to obey the army chief because he was an apostate, because he is believed to be an Ahmadiyya. So that's how it is. In fact, not only that, Nawaz Sharif's son-in-law in parliament gave a speech, Captain Safdar, where he said that the Ahmadiyya should not be appointed to the government, should not be appointed to the army and all those things. So there are a lot of twists and turns in this particular speech, because we need to understand what the Supreme Court has given a judgment. We will see if Supreme Court has the resolve, if it goes further and takes up the Asghar Khan case. Then it will show, yes, they have the resolve.
But what you're saying is that, you know, might not have much effect in the way the deep state functions there. Ambassador Dayal, if you look at from India's perspective, you know, this entire situation, given the fact that Pakistan is our neighborhood, and the events which take place there do affect us directly or indirectly. So how cautious should India be here right now, given the fact that we are having these talks on 13th of March on the Kartarpur corridor as well, and then the Pakistani government has also expressed its wish a lot of time to go ahead and have the dialogue with India, although they have been speaking in dual tones again.
Well, very frankly, I do not expect Pakistan's policy towards India to change at all. Pakistan is hostile, and despite it adopting a stance of duplicity by trying to have a dialogue with India, the fact remains that it tries to hurt India at every opportunity by waging terrorist warfare or covert warfare against us. Now, that aspect of the Pakistan army, because it is after all a strategy which has been devised by the Pakistan army, that will not change no matter how many judgments the Supreme Court of Pakistan pronounces curbing the political role of that military organization. So, as far as India is concerned, things will not change and we have to remain on guard at all times against our Western neighbor. As far as life within Pakistan is concerned, yes, to some extent things may change because the government will be under pressure to put curbs on extremist organizations. But at the same time, it is going to be a little difficult to monitor each and every case because the malaise is very widespread and hatred against liberal elements, or for that matter, the stranglehold of the establishment, particularly the army, is very well established.
And there are too many layers, as Mr. Bansal was pointing out.
Too many layers and too many complications. So, while the judgment itself should be praised for being a landmark judgment and for being very bold, but it remains to be seen how much effect it really will have. As Captain Bansal pointed out, in the past too, there have been certain occasions when the judiciary has tried to stand up, but then it has faced the wrath of the armed forces, and either it has worked along with the armed forces hand in hand or has been put in its place. If you recall, when General Zia-ul Haq took over as Chief Martial Law Administrator, he wanted all the Supreme Court judges to swear allegiance to him by swearing under the provisional constitutional order, because the constitution of Pakistan had been suspended. Now, three prominent judges, the Supreme Court Chief Justice, Justice Anwarul Haq, Justice Dorab Patel, who was a Parsi judge, and Justice Fakhruddin Ji Ibrahim, refused to take oath under that PCO, and therefore they resigned. So there have been occasions when senior judges in Pakistan have tried to stand up to the armed forces
and the establishment, military establishment.
Their effectiveness has been very limited.
Okay.
In the case of Justice Iftikhar Chowdhury, who, as Captain Bansal pointed out, was suspended twice, things took a little different turn at times because there was a lawyers' movement and it became a street movement, and to some extent Musharraf had to capitulate.
So there are too many strands basically.
But the stranglehold of the armed forces on the civilian government will be very difficult to eliminate. At the same time, the growing radicalism in Pakistani society and the spread of terror organizations will also be difficult to check.
Okay, General Siwach, as all of you are saying that, although this is a welcome step by the Supreme Court, but nothing much is going to change as far as, army and the ISI's role in the civilian government there, or day-to-day running of the nation there is concerned. So in that context, as Mr. Dayal is also pointing out, nothing much changes from India's perspective, for India specifically.
Absolutely, Vishal. Nothing is going to change. As far as India is concerned, anti-Indian stance will be taken by Pakistan as it was been taken till now. Cross-border terrorism will continue. Second thing is that they are now trying to become a big player in sorting out Afghanistan for America, because behind the scene they are playing a role to showing that they are the one who was a facilitator between the talks between Taliban and Americans in you say Qatar and earlier in Dubai. So they are playing a major role. So as far as army is concerned, it is in limelight. It plays a major role. Nothing much is going to change as far as India is concerned. They will keep on doing this cross-border terrorism. They will also try to undermine our importance in Afghanistan, which is a very important for us now in time to come. We have to guard ourselves. That how do we ensure that we remain active there? Because our infrastructure development and capacity building is huge. Okay. We have invested $3 billion there. Therefore, Pakistan will like that India should not be marginalized, but we have to remain alert and alive that we remain active there.
Okay.
So this is one point which Pakistan Army will try to do. As far as internally is concerned in Pakistan, nothing much going to change. Remember that after Dayal, when he came, he has radicalized and brought Islamization in the army itself. You find that the number of officers were there which were aligned to certain organization which were terrorist organization. So this is happening over a period of time. However, it is now declining because they want to make it a professional army. The another thing I want to tell is that this as far as this milestone judgment which is given, it says that there is a problem in Pakistan and ISI and Pakistan Army is trying to interfere with the political ramification, and also that they are trying to curb the communication system in the country. To that extent, it is a very good sign. At least there is a courage and guts shown by the judiciary. But remember that how long he'll carry on that way. Remember one thing more, the Musharraf basically has to go out from Pakistan. He became unpopular when he went against the advocates, because when they went against him and they did not relent, that is the end of him. That is how he became unpopular. As far as the administration is concerned, he was still carrying on. So therefore, judiciary behind the scene can play a major role until unless there is a package which is signed between judiciary and the military, which they have been doing in the past also. Then otherwise they have to follow what their judiciary is telling. But to me it looks like that in time to come, judiciary will play to the ball of army, because they will by and large negotiate, which is good for both of them.
Okay, so in a nutshell, domestically nothing changes in Pakistan and it doesn't change much for India. Captain Bansal, from India's perspective, again, the way all three of you are describing, several stands, several layers, doesn't look like much is going to change even after this verdict, which some may call historic and rare as well. So India needs to go ahead and keep up its guard.
Undoubtedly, because ISI is not going to change its orientation, and in any case, if it actually stops delving into the internal affairs, it will have actually more focused approach as far as external things which it has been doing. The fact of the matter is ISI is dabbling in internal affairs. It will continue to dabble in internal affairs. If you actually read Pakistani newspaper any day, Karachi city, Baluchistan, there are two very clear examples where ISI is dabbling in political activities every day. The MQM, the party which controlled Karachi, has actually virtually been vanquished. Anybody who is aligned with Altaf Hussain is picked up and killed. The legitimate activities, political activities which they might want to indulge, just not permitted. Even professors from the university have been picked up and actually shot dead. So that's happening. Similarly in Baluchistan, you see the Baloch nationalists, the parties which espouse Baloch nationalism have been targeted. So ISI will continue to act. Now, one thing which General Siwach talked about, this just advocates movement and all those things, and Iftikhar Chaudhry's time. Please remember, Iftikhar Chaudhry was one of the judges who had taken oath under PCO. So he had actually already compromised initially. And then of course he came, there were a lot of issues because the time that this particular movement took place, Musharraf had started losing his popularity within the armed forces. So since he was already losing his popularity within the army, he was under pressure because this movement could not be curtailed, because army was not willing to go the extra hog to actually crush.
Domestically, not much is going to change there in Pakistan. But from from the kind of anti-India activities which are being supported and pushed by the ISI and the army, also there will not be no let up there.
No let up. There is no chance of it. In fact, we are seeing what is happening. In fact, with what is happening in Afghanistan, they are actually far more emboldened, because today Pakistan feels that they have actually come out from the abyss, because now IMF is moderating its terms and US is looking at Pakistan. So Pakistan feels that now it's again their time and they can isolate India as far as Afghanistan is concerned. And please remember, all those people who are fighting in Afghanistan will not start plowing the field just because you come to a negotiated settlement. They'll only move to a different arena, and that different arena could well be within your geographical territory. So it is something which is of great concern to us, and ISI will continue to nibble, continue to do this. And of course, from 18th February, they are going to take up the case against an Indian national who they had kidnapped all the way from Iran. So they are going to start doing that, and they are talking about it in their media in a big way.
Okay, so concluding comments from you, Ambassador Dayal, before we bring this to an end. In terms of How much watchful should India be and keep its guard up? Because as Captain Bansal also pointed out, the Kulbhushan Jadhav case is there, and then the kind of other anti-India activities, there's seemingly no let-up from there.
We cannot drop our guard at all, because the very raison d'etre of the Pakistan army is hostility towards India. Now, no matter how many judgments, as I said earlier, the Supreme Court passes which relate to the Pakistan army, none of its judgments will concern the army's role vis-a-vis India. You may have curbs on religious organizations, but do you think that religious leaders like Hafiz Saeed or Maulana Masood Azhar will be curbed in spewing venom against India, which they have been doing all these years? I think all that will not change.
Okay.
So in reality, if we lived in an ideal world, the judgment of the Supreme Court could have made a difference. But in the real world in which we live, we have to be cognizant of the fact that the reality of Pakistan vis-a-vis us will not undergo any transformation.
Okay, so as our panelists are pointing out, that the reality of Pakistan vis-a-vis India is unlikely to undergo any change, although the verdict which was delivered by the Supreme Court is being termed as a rare one. But then, given the past history of Army and ISI, it looks highly unlikely that there will be much significant change on the ground in terms of the activities which they indulged in, not only domestically, but with respect to India as well. We'll come back again next week with a different topic and different set of guests. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.